Allah Azza wa Jal is actually, أبلغ المتكلمين. Nobody speaks more eloquently than Allah Azza wa Jal does. And in just a few words, He's captured pretty much an entire worldview of how Muslim community and Muslim families are supposed to think about getting their sons and daughters married. And it's not only about getting your own sons and daughters married, as a matter of fact. When these ayat were revealed, there were a lot of people that had just become Muslim. So they did not have Muslim families. There were women whose parents were not Muslim, they were not supportive of them. These are sahabiyat now, and they're not married, or they came out of a marriage and they have a child, etc. There are these situations that are conventional, where you have a son or a daughter and they grow up and they're of age and you're thinking about getting them married. But our larger family is the ummah. The Messenger will call it one body, the Quran will call it ikhwa, blood brothers pretty much. We're brethren among ourselves, which means we're one large family. So when people in our community, men and women, can't get married, that's also our problem. That's something that falls on all of our shoulders collectively. So Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَأَنْكِحُ الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ. Get the unmarried among them married. So where the statement begins. Who does it apply to? You would think it applies to people, okay, once this boy has graduated from school, once he's got a good job, once he's got a good amount of savings, once he's got a little bit of the return on investment paid back to his parents, once he's done all this and this, and once everybody else in the family is taken care of, then we'll think about getting him married. Even when we do get married, this needs to not just be a matter of our material gain, this is a matter of family pride. We need to make sure that's someone that we can show off, someone that we can be proud of and take lots of pictures and invite, have a huge gathering ceremony and be able to show that we married in an upper class family, etc., etc. وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ. Even get the good among your slave men and women. Back then there was a slave society too. And the people that are making virtually no money are the slaves. Allah says get them married too. So the rationale that somebody has to be at a certain economic status before you think about marriage was crushed by one statement, removed from the equation. The only thing mentioned in the equation is, are they of the age? Should they be married? And the second is they're salihin, they're good people. Good means they're good with Allah, also means they're mature, they're ready. They're of the age. وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ. And then Allah Azza wa Jal adds to that, because there are people who still consider these matters, إِن يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاء يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. If they happen to be bankrupt, if they don't have a lot of money, don't worry, that's not your problem. Allah will give them wealth from His own blessing. Because bankruptcy to Allah is a lesser problem. But ayma means lots of people in society that are not married. That's a much bigger problem. Not having money is a less problem. But not having people tied down in healthy relationships, that's a much, much bigger problem to Allah. When I was studying this word, I even found a narration, أَنَّهُ كَانَ يَتَعَوَّذُ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم مِنَ الْأَيْمَةِ. Rasulullah ﷺ used to actually seek refuge from a society with a lot of single people. He used to be worried about the ummah becoming people, a lot of single people just happy the way they are. And they're not happy the way they are, it's just that their families kept pushing them candidates that they're not interested in, and the one they wanted to marry, they're not allowed to marry. And so they say, whatever, I'll just stay single. And when somebody says, I stay single, doesn't mean I stay an angel. Let's be very clear what that means. If there's a 30-year-old, and he's a professional, and he's making good money, and she's 29 years old or 28 years old, and she's graduated from school, and she's not married, that does not mean temptation hasn't come to them, sin hasn't come their way, that they've just lived this pious life like they're living in the city of Medina. But I digress from the point. The first point I wanted to make is, how do we make marriage easy? Look, your family pride, you wanted your son or daughter to marry somebody within the race, within the city, within the village, within the extended cousins, God knows what you had in mind for them. You had all these dreams for them. If you wanted to have them marry within the village, why didn't you stay in the village? Why did you bring them here? Why did you let them go to college? Why did you let them see the world? You were trying to pretend that the world is still what it was. It's not. The world has changed. The world was even different from the Meccan Sahaba. When they moved to Medina, the Sahaba noticed, these are not like women of Mecca, this is different. Society was different for them. When people migrate, there's a new society. And we have to adapt to that. And to refuse to accept that is a form of oppression. It actually goes against the ayah that says, allow people to get married. Open that door up. Which comes to the next point. When some proposal comes your way, you have daughters. Like I have daughters. May Allah Azza wa Jal help all of us who have daughters. You know, and sons too. I'll throw them in the dua. But you know, like, but if you have daughters and some proposal comes, she's of the age, it's a good match, she likes him, it's okay to ask, do you like him? It's not haram to ask, it's actually an important thing to ask, do you like him? She says, I don't like how he looks. Done, finished. You can't force them anymore. I'm not attracted to him. Astaghfirullah. That will come, Allah will put it in your heart. No, it won't. That's not how it works. If she says, I don't like him, he's too fat, he's too short, he's ugly, I don't like his personality, whatever she says, she doesn't even have to give you a reason. She doesn't. She could just say no. That's it. And by the way, later on in this ayah, I won't get time to get to it, but I'll just refer to the phrase, وَلَا تُكْرِهُ فَتَيَاتِكُمْ عَلَى الْبِغَاءِ. Don't force your young girls to rebellion. That's the phrase in the Quran. Don't force your young girls to rebellion. And the immediate interpretation actually of it was, don't make young women go into prostitution. Because in Medina, that's what they did with slave women. They used them to make money off of them as pimps, and they used to literally pimp them in the streets. That's what they did. And Quran came and spoke against that. But the phrasing Allah used wasn't just about prostitution. He made it wide open. Why is it wide open? When you force a woman to get married to someone she doesn't want to marry, when you put emotional pressure on her and say, if you don't marry him, nobody's going to marry you, your family's going to be humiliated, we've already printed the cards. When you do this kind of thing to your girls and you get them married, and then emotionally they're not in that marriage, they're still human beings. A human being still needs companionship. A human being still wants somebody who they can be attracted to, who they can find comfort in. That desire does not go away. And that desire will now be fulfilled by fantasy, by them thinking about things, by late night going on social media, by other things. You force them into rebelling against Allah because you forced them into a marriage they didn't want to begin with. This is لا تكرهوا فتياتكم على البغاء also. Don't push this on your daughters. But coming back, this is about men and about women. The young men of our community actually have to now stand up for themselves and have to say, I'm ready to get married. And I have somebody in mind. And that's the next thing I want to share with you. You know, when it comes to, you want a marriage that lasts forever. Like we want our boy to have the perfect girl. Good luck with that, by the way. Because perfection is not going to happen in this, and your boy isn't perfect. Let me tell you. If you don't know, let me tell you. We're all human beings, and human beings have flaws, and sometimes things work, and sometimes things don't work. But let me tell you, when a young man and a young woman are old enough to get married, that actually means they're old enough to make their own choice. Let me repeat myself. When they're old enough to get married, they're old enough to, but maybe you think this is a mistake. But if your son is 25 years old, your daughter's 30 years old, and she wants to make a mistake, that halal mistake is way better. That halal mistake is way, and maybe things don't work out in 3 years. That's still better. That's still better than you refusing, because I have seen enough cases. I don't talk in theory, I'm talking based on what I've seen, the conversations I've had with people, with real Muslim families around the world, especially around the United States and Canada, where people are, this man comes and says, I want to marry this girl. The father says, no, you're not from the same country, you're not from the same culture or whatever. You can't get married to my daughter, or the other way around. But these two are still already emotionally attached. So they're texting each other, talking to each other, hanging out with each other, having dinner with each other. Parents don't know. 5, 6 years go by, they're refusing other proposals. Then the girl is forced to marry somebody else and she's still talking to the guy. And all of this was that evil, that this whoever she married didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve this. But all of that evil was created by the stubbornness of parents who didn't realize that their children live in a different time. Where allowing marriage first is a bigger priority than anything else. You have to understand, when these ayat came down, they came down in Medina. And the Arab people of the time especially were very tribal. They wanted to maintain their nasab at all costs. You maintain your lineage. Lineage is a very, very big deal. So marrying outside your tribe was not a common thing. But now the Sahaba are in Medina, and they're outcast from their own city anyway. And a lot of the people that were in Medina, they've accepted Islam, so they're outcast from their own tribes. So there are going to be marriages outside of their culture. You have to understand, it's not just an Arab marrying an Arab. This is a Hudali marrying someone from Taif or someone, there's all this intertribal marriage happening, which is a big deal to them. It's as big a deal today than a Pakistani marrying a Bangladeshi, astaghfirullah al-azim. Or a Lebanese marrying an Egyptian. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. How can that be? This was a big deal to them. But Allah said, no, forget all of that. Just make sure that marriage itself becomes easy. Just that much. And Allah will take care of it. There are legitimate ways by people getting introduced to each other. Some of us are so conservative, we're so protective of our women that we want them to become invisible. That is not the way Medina operated. And some of us are so liberal and so open. Oh yeah, they want to go out to dinner, go ahead. Oh, just come back before midnight. Really? That's insane. What are you thinking? What are you doing? This is not, the khalwa is open doors for shaitan. So we've got these two extremes, and now we've got to come back to the middle. Allow young people to meet in a dignified fashion with the knowledge of their families, and if there is mutual interest, then it's okay. They can express it. And I want to leave you with one last thing, even though I've talked about it many times before, just as a reminder for myself and for all of you. The only marriage proceedings mentioned in the Quran are that of Musa alayhi salam. Like from 0 to 100, like finding a girl and getting married to a girl. That whole spectrum is captured in the story of Musa alayhi salam. Just a few things about that. First and foremost, he's from Banu Israel, yes? He's an Israelite. And he is homeless. He's a fugitive from the law. He ran from Egypt because he accidentally killed someone. So he's homeless, he's an Israelite, he's a fugitive, he ends up in an Arab tribe, Madian. He ends up in Arab land, where he finds a couple of girls, and he helps them. And one of the girls indirectly told her father she's interested in him. And the father immediately said yes. And they got married. So an Israeli got married to an Arab in the Quran. And the one from Israel was also homeless and a fugitive from the law. The only thing the father needed to see was three things. One, the girl's interested. That was number one. She liked him. Number two, he's strong. He's got good character, good qualities in him. He can do a job. He can make money. He can defend my family. And then he's trustworthy. He had plenty of opportunity to do the wrong thing. He did no such thing. He carried himself with dignity. When you have these three qualities, ethnicity didn't matter. Financial status didn't matter. None of that mattered. None of that mattered. As a matter of fact, in this case, if nowadays when you say this, it sounds suicidal, for 10 years, between 8 and 10 years, Musa alayhi salam lived with his in-laws and worked for his father-in-law. And his paycheck came from his in-laws. Today when you say to somebody, hey, where do you work? Oh, I work for my father-in-law and I live with them too. Well, what a guy. This is a real man? This is a man even? He lives with his in-laws? You want to question the manhood of Musa alayhi salam? See what happens to you. Because you don't want to get punched by that man alayhi salam. What I'm saying is there are sometimes unusual situations. And Allah mentions them on purpose in the Quran because sometimes the marriage is going to be under unusual situations. Not every situation can be ideal. And in your family, if there's an unusual situation, don't sit there and cry, why couldn't we have a normal kind of situation? That's okay. Life is not about normal. Actually, when you dig deep in every family, there's no such thing as normal. Every one of us is weird. Every one of us has strange situations in their family. So we have to adapt, and we have to be flexible, and we have to be merciful to our coming generation, allowing them to get married in a healthy way, and having that open conversation with our sons and with our daughters. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless this community with healthy marriages. May Allah Azza wa Jal allow us to do right by our children, and our children to do right by their children in raising children on Islam. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim, wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim.